Hey guys, my name's Emma and welcome to PinEMup. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to do foundation basics and some tips and tricks to keep a base that sits well in your face, one that lasts long, how to contain oil in your foundation, because if you've got oily skin like me, after a couple of hours it tends to break through. I'm going to jump straight in and first say that before this video I washed my face and I applied moisturizer just so that my skin is in really good condition before I even try and put anything on it. The foundation will reflect what is underneath it. So it's really important to be able to take care of your face, and I'm not necessarily saying having flawless skin with no pimples, and it's just about taking the best care of your face that you can. The first step of this is going to be wearing some primer. I use the Smashbox Photo Finish Foundation Primer, and primer basically creates a base on your face for you to lock down and have that foundation stick to it. I just rub it together in my hands and apply it all over the face. This is not necessarily a pore filling primer, but some primers are specifically made to fill your pores so that when you put makeup on there's no extra like pores there or anything like that. So now that my face is moisturized and primed, I'm gonna go in with foundation. I'm gonna go in with a mix of two purely because I kind of mix to find the best shade out of these two. Like, I can do a whole nother video on shade matching, which I will probably do in the future because it is quite an important part of makeup and quite a it's stupidly tricky. It's really stupidly tricky. I'm gonna go in with a wet beauty sponge, so I just wet this before, and a mix of the Lancome Tiny Doll Ultra Wear 24-Hour Foundation and the Urban Decay All Nighter, and I just mix it to get the shade that I want. It may not be perfect. I just did one side without explaining what I did. But basically pick up the product on the flat side of your sponge and start tapping it into your face. And you just tap it all around, and remember to bring it down the neck because often our neck and face naturally isn't even the same color. So it's important. And as you can see, I'm a full coverage kind of person, but if you're not, then that's fine. You can just use something with a little bit less coverage or a little bit less product. So I need a little bit more foundation just to get that full caked effect. When you're applying the foundation, you kind of want to put it everywhere but your eyebrows so that you have room to fill them in, and leave your eyelids blank because that's where you put concealer. And with my under eye, I basically put a normal coat of foundation on my under eye. Some people leave from here with foundation and just apply concealer there. I, as a full coverage gal, love to just cake it on from the very beginning, and I'm just gonna blend it out onto my nose and just make sure there are no spots where there's streaks or lines and you can use a brush to apply foundation, but personally I don't find a way for that to work. This is just the foundation tapped on with my beauty blender, making sure that I use the flat end just so I could get as much of it on in the most timely manner as possible. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to concealer, just because there's some dark lines under your eyes and there's some pimples and spots that you probably don't want there. So just with my NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer, I'm just going to use my finger and apply some under my eye. And I'm just going to push it slightly towards my cheekbone. And you want to go with a concealer that is lighter than your foundation, but you don't want to go with a white one. It's just about brightening up that area. So it's about going one or two shades lighter, just to make sure that area has a little bit more vibrance, I guess. This is part of highlighting and contouring, but I'm actually going to be doing a separate video after this about highlighting, contouring and bronzing with little tips and tricks about that, just because I feel you can never know enough about makeup. I don't know everything there is to know about makeup. I'm gonna go in with the smaller side so I can go under my eyes. If it looks like I'm not looking at you, I am. I just have to flick between the camera and the mirror. And I'm just gonna blend the other eye as well. And before you even start to blend out your concealer, you need to make sure that you have your setting powder, your baking powder, close on hand straight away so you can pop it under your eyes as soon as it is done. And with any leftover leftover concealer, just pop it on your eyelid. And I'm actually going to go back into the concealer and just swipe a little bit on my eyelids just because I've got to do that, and I thought I could blend out the rest of it, but there was not quite enough. So just put a good amount on and blend it all the way from the inner corner to your brow bone. Here's where you gotta get speedy. This is where I'm going to grab my Maybelline Master Fix Setting Perfecting Loose Powder, and I've got it in the shade Translucent. With this powder, I'm just gonna put it on a sponge and press it under my eyes. I applied this so that the concealer doesn't crease and it just sets the way that it is. And it also helps to keep lightening up that area. So I'm just going to go and do it on the other side. Honestly, you can do this with a pressed powder, but I find that loose powder tends to work the best for this, because you pack it on your eye and then you take a brush in and you brush off any excess. And I'm just setting that. And if there's any other areas that you want to set particularly well, go ahead and do that with this powder. We're leaving the rest of the face because we're going to use a powder more to our skin tone. And I'm just caking it on so I can bake of sorts. I kind of bake twice when I do makeup. Now that I have the under eye all set, I'm going to go in with the NARS Velvet Loose Powder in the shade Flesh. And I'm going to go in with a powder puff and tap a little bit into the lid. That's more than a little bit, but you know, will work. And get the powder puff in there and kind of get an even distribution. And from here, we're gonna pat that onto any area that we put foundation but did not put that translucent powder. So just putting that powder up on the forehead, on the nose, on the lower cheeks, and just down the neck. This is just really important because the powder will actually hold in the oils from your skin. Normally I do my brows now, but I will do a separate video about eyes and brows. So I am going to let this sit for a second and be back to brush it off. So now that I am back, I've let the bake sit for about 5-10 minutes. I'm going to brush it off with, this is just a Sports Girl foundation brush, but I also like it for powder. So I'm just going to use this brush and make sure I brush off all of that powder. Go over the rest of my face because we used a powder puff to pack it on. So it'll be pushed further into the skin, but that will leave residue. The reason I used a powder puff to powder is because rather than a brush, it put it on a lot tighter and denser onto the foundation. So it is much less likely to get greasy or silly or bad, or that's not the right word. Which is really important if you want to keep this face of makeup for a long time. It also helps control the oil. If you have dry skin, this is not the explanation for you. I have oily to combination skin, and my skin's more on the oily side too. So this is more for the oily skin kind of people. If I'm doing makeup on a dry skinned client, then I do it very differently, but I can do another video explaining that. Now that I have everything set and good to go for the base, I'm just going to use some setting spray. I use setting spray at this stage just because there's a lot of powder and a lot of cream products on my face, and so it's really important to help make sure that it is not cakey, because to an extent makeup will always be a little bit cakey, but it's to make sure that it's sitting on my skin in the most natural way that it can. This is the finished how I do my foundation routine. This is for oily skin, but I can explain the difference now. So basically with drier skin, you want to make sure that you really prep it with really moisturizing primers. You got to make sure that you moisturize it really well before application, and make sure you get like a really hydrating foundation. Getting a really matte finish would probably not work the best for your skin. So getting like a really dewy finish foundation, if you want to make it matte after that, then put some powder. You will not need to put anywhere near as much powder as you put on for oily skin. This powder is to hold all that oil in and make sure none of it seeps through. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below because I have new videos every week. And if you stay tuned for next week, I will be showing you the basics and tips and tricks for contour, highlight, and for basically sculpting the face. So contour, highlight, blush, and all of that sort of bronzing area of makeup. Anyways, link down below to my previous makeup, to my previous body paint, so that's very exciting. Also link to my Instagram and my Facebook page, so go and hit those up because I'm trying to be much more active on them and I really want to get to know you guys and that you guys get to know me. I do lots of Instagram stories of weird things that I'm doing, or like when I'm setting up and things don't quite go as planned. But anyways, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye. Pat, 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 pat. That was weird.